Ever wonder how we know who's better in chess or any head-to-head sport? That's where the Elo Rating System comes in. It's a clever formula that updates a player's skill level after every match, rewarding big wins, punishing bad losses, and adjusting over time. Let's break it down and even apply it to some other sports. These two equations might look intimidating at first, but they're actually pretty simple. Let's start with the first one. It compares the ratings of two players and gives you the probability that player A beats player B, a number between 0 and 1. Now we plug that into the second equation, which has two more pieces, S sub A and K. S sub A is the result of the game, 1 for a win, 0 for a loss, and 0.5 for a tie. K is a constant that controls how much ratings change after each game. The difference between what actually happened, S sub A, and what the formula expected, E sub A, or the probability that player A beats player B, tells us whether to bump a player up or down, and by how much. Since that difference will always be between -1 and 1, the most a rating can go up or down after a single game is by K points. Think of Elo like a dynamic scoreboard that learns over time, adjusting your score based on not just whether you win, but who you beat. Since K is a constant, we have to choose before using the Elo system. We're left with a question. What's the right K value to pick? To figure that out, we'll run a Monte Carlo simulation. Let's start small. We'll use 6 players, each with a known true Elo. But in our simulation, everyone starts at an initial Elo of 100. Now for the first matchup. The player with a true Elo of 90 versus the one with 80. To simulate the game, we'll calculate the probability that the higher rated player wins. In this case, it's about 0.5294. Then we will randomly pick a number between 0 and 1. If that number is less than 0.5294, the higher rated player wins. If it's higher, the underdog wins. In our simulation, the player with a true Elo of 90 wins. So we mark that as a win and update both player Elo ratings using our formulas. We then run the rest of the first round and update each player's ratings. You may notice something interesting. The Elo taken from one player is given to the other. So in a closed system with no new players, the total Elo stays constant. It just moves around. Next we will simulate round 2 and keep going until all players have played each other. Now let's compare the results. Even though the updated Elo ratings don't exactly match the true Elos, that's okay. What we care about is ranking. Can Elo still figure out who's better than whom? When we sort players by their simulated Elo ratings and compare them to the rankings of their true Elos, we see there's a pretty strong match, but not perfect. To measure how close the rankings are, we use something called the Spearman rank correlation coefficient. It ranges from -1 to 1. 1 meaning perfectly ranked, -1 meaning the rankings are completely reversed, and 0 meaning no correlation. In our 6-player example, we get a Spearman coefficient of 0.8286. Not too bad, but let's scale it up. What if we had 30 players, each playing 5 randomly selected opponents? We run the simulation again with a K value of 20, and this time we get a Spearman coefficient of 0.7385. Not terrible, but here's the thing. Doing this just once can give us a noisy result due to randomness. So instead, we repeat the simulation 5 times, then average the Spearman scores, giving us a more stable estimate. Still not enough? Let's go even bigger. We run simulations using K values from 10 to 200 and repeat each one over 300 times. After crunching the numbers, the K value with the best average Spearman correlation was 30, so that's one we'll use going forward. If you're curious how Monte Carlo simulation work in more detail, check out my last video where I break it down all step by step. Woo! Okay, we got through the equations. Now let's get into the fun stuff. Let's apply the Elo rating system to some sports. We'll start with the history of the UFC to see who has been ranked as the best all-time and the current best fighters. By plotting all the fighters' Elos across all time, one fighter stands out, highlighted in red, and that is Jon Jones. Although controversial, you've got to give him his flowers. His peak Elo, which is also his current Elo, stands at 1261, which is 27 points better than our second place, which is George St. Pierre. Here's the list of the top 30 fighters of all time. Coming in at number 3 is actually quite a surprise for me. Islam Makhachev. That's right, he ranks 3rd overall and is already beaten 5 of the other top 100 fighters of all time. If you want to see the full list, head over to my Twitter, AJB Analytics. Tony Ferguson, a fan favorite, shows up at number 6. But unfortunately, that also means he's had the biggest fall of anyone on this list, thanks to the 8-fight losing streak. And finally, I wanted to point out something special. Amanda Nunes is the only woman to crack the top 30, coming in at number 18. Alright, now that we've seen the top peak Elos of all time, let's switch gears and look at the current top 20 fighters. But right away, you'll probably notice a problem. Some of these fighters are actually retired. So, why are they still showing up? Well, technically, unless a fighter loses, their Elo doesn't drop. So if someone retires on a win streak, they'll still be ranked high. So let's fix that real quick by dropping the retired fighters. And there we go. Now this is the real top 20 current fighters. One thing that stands out to me, Ilia Topuria making it in at number 20 really highlights how much a winning streak matters, sometimes even more than beating top tier opponents. Oh, and a quick disclaimer, I made this after UFC 316, so fighters who have won since should be ranked higher. Now, let's shift gears to football. When applying the Elo rating system here, there are 2 main approaches. Option 1 is a continuous Elo system that carries over ratings from season to season. Option 2 is a discrete Elo system that resets ratings at the start of each season. Some of you might remember that back in the BCS era, one of the 6 computer metrics used to help determine college football rankings was a version of Elo, and they reset after every season. But here's the problem with that. Let's say you play Alabama in week 1. If Elo ratings haven't had time to adjust, beating them might not boost your score as much as it should. But if you beat them in week 10, when their rating has risen, it would drastically improve yours. So let's try out both methods. Here's the graph showing continuous Elo ratings for each team without resetting at the start of each season. Quick disclaimer, as you can probably tell, the data only goes back to 1999, so if you had data going back to the beginning of the NFL, these Elo ratings might look different. The lines are in each team's colors, but yeah, it's a lot. So let's break it down by looking at the highest peak Elo and the lowest Elo each team has reached since 1999. Here's the highest Elo for every team, along with the year they hit it. If you're a Browns or Commanders fan, you might be wondering where your team is. And if you look closely, you'll see the Rams and Chargers appear twice. Once for each city they've played in. Unfortunately, both versions of those franchises have outperformed the peak Elo of the Browns and Commanders. But let's group those franchises by city, so we're only counting each team once. At the top, no surprise, the Patriots, with a peak Elo of 1871, which they reached at the end of their perfect 18-0 run in the 2007-2008 season before the Super Bowl. And this past season, 3 teams hit their highest Elo ever, the Bills, the Lions, and the Chiefs, who all peaked. Now, let's look at the lowest Elo ratings, the roughest points for each franchise. Browns fans, I'm sorry. Not only did you rank last in peak Elo, but you also took the top spot for lowest Elo in the modern era. Other notable lows, the Panthers and Patriots both hit rock bottom this year. That said, I do think that both teams have a shot at bouncing back next season. And then there's the Ravens. Their lowest Elo only dipped slightly below the league average of 1,500, bottoming out at just 1,422. That's one of the most consistent floors in the league. Now, let's shift gears and put into effect the Elo reset after each season, and see how the landscape of the league changes. Here's a look at each season again. Like before, it's a lot to take in. So let's zoom in on some of the most fascinating storylines across the seasons. We start with 2003, where we see the highest Elo rating ever recorded in a single season. The New England Patriots finished with an Elo of 1734 after winning the Super Bowl over the Panthers and ending with a record of 17-2. This was the birth of a dynasty. Belichick and Brady collecting their second ring, kicking off what would become one of the most dominant stretches in NFL history. Then there's 2011, a year that rewrote the underdog playbook. The New York Giants entered the playoffs at just 9-7 and finished with the lowest Elo of any Super Bowl champ. They snuck into the dance, then pulled off the impossible, knocking off the 13-3 Patriots for the second time in 5 years. Eli Manning went 30 for 40 with 296 yards, and the Giants' defense made Brady look mortal again. The 2007 Patriots dominated like no team ever before. Undefeated in the regular season and boasting the highest Elo rating ever recorded. They looked destined to cement their legacy as the greatest, but in a stunning twist, the Giants pulled off one of the most iconic plays in NFL history, the helmet catch, snatching victory from the jaws of perfection. It was a heartbreaker that proved even the highest Elo can't guarantee a Super Bowl ring. Fast forward to 2017, where we're not talking about the Super Bowl glory, but the darkest Elo pit in recent history. The Cleveland Browns went 0-16, and their Elo sank to 1283, the lowest in the entire dataset. It's tough to find a silver lining here. At this point, the Browns have appeared on the top of the 3 worst of lists, and it feels like even a Madden simulation would give them more mercy. And there you have it, the Elo rating system in action. From chessboards to UFC octagons all the way to the gridiron. What started as a simple way to rank chess players turns out to be a powerful tool for measuring greatness, unpredictability, and the drama of competition across sports.